Hello, and this video is for the OCR A psychology specification. Today we'll be looking at some cognitive psychology and in particular the Grant et al. Study on context-dependent memory. So, what he wanted to do was to show that the context and the environment can affect your memory, such as if you learn in the same environment as you do a test in, your memory should go up, it should increase, you should recall better. If you learn in an environment, but you get tested in another environment, i.e. a mismatched learning environment and testing environment, your memory should not do as well as it would if you learn in the same environment as you were tested. So Grant used a laboratory experiment and he used an independent measures design. So this is the experimental design. This is the research method. Okay, so his independent variable, he had two. One was if it was in a silent or noisy condition for where the participants read. And the second independent variable was it in a matched or a mismatched condition in where the participants answered the test. So for example, if you read in a silent condition, it would be matched if you did your test also in a silent condition. His dependent variable was firstly a short answer test, followed by a multiple choice questions. Grant had an opportunity sample with 39 participants, aged 17 to 56 years old. Some more information on this, there was 8 psychology students acting as researchers who all had the task of getting 5 participants each. That's where this number comes from. So Grant used some good controls. He administered the short answer test before the multiple choice questions. And this is to ensure that participants' recall was coming from their memory and not from just recognizing some words on the multiple choice question. Another control was all participants wore headphones. This is so headphones do not become a confounding variable in this experiment, as we don't want people to perform worse or better with headphones on. The method was participants were asked to read an article in either a silent, i.e. no noise, or a noisy condition, i.e. in their headphones, they had a uni cafeteria during lunchtime playing. So for example, they were hearing a uni cafeteria during lunchtime in the background. But they were told to ignore the sound. So in a noisy condition, you were told to ignore this sound of the uni cafeteria in the background. After this was done, all participants had a 2-minute break. This is another control. And I think that this was done to ensure that participants all had an equal sort of playing field when they were doing the exam. Because if you did if you did the learning, literally 5 seconds before you did the test, and you did the test maybe 5 minutes after you were learning, obviously those two people will get different scores. Because the first person will just be using a short-term memory and the second person will just be using his long-term memory. After this 2-minute break, they did the short answer test first, followed by the multiple choice, and then they were debriefed. This is a good ethics with Grant study. They were all debriefed. The entire procedure lasted approximately 30 minutes. Grant came up with some conclusions and some results. So, participants roughly spent an equal amount of time reading the article. So, for example, if a participant read for 2 minutes, another participant would have read for approximately 1 minute and 57 seconds. So all participants spent approximately the same time reading an article. There was no overall effect of noise on performance. So for example, if you learnt in a very noisy environment, but you did the test also in a very noisy environment, you're still going to do good. It doesn't matter what environment you learn in. It's just about what environment you do the test in. If it's the same, if it's matched, or if it's mismatched. So studying and testing in the same environments equals a higher score. So if you study in a noisy environment and you tested in a noisy environment, you're going to get a good score. Whereas if you studied in a noisy environment and tested in a silent environment, you're going to do worse. There are context-dependent effects for newly learnt material. And that's just saying exactly what it said in the previous point, that if you study in the same environment, you do your test, you will do better. If you study in a different environment to what you do your test, you will do worse. However, this study needs to be replicated for long-term effects. As you know, this is for newly learnt material, as they read an article and did a test literally 2 minutes after. They need to do another study, they need to replicate the study for maybe, 2 days after reading an article. What are the effects on memory then? Are they different? Are they the same? We will not know until a study's done. And lastly, I'd just like to show you what the 4 conditions were like. So as I talked about earlier, the independent variable is silent or noisy, and the 4 conditions were noisy learning, noisy testing, noisy learning, silent testing, silent learning, silent testing, and silent learning, and noisy testing. And that's all, folks. That's the grant study. Don't know what to say. Bon voyage. Au revoir. Adios.